Here's what most people get wrong about ginger and blood pressure. If you type the word ginger next to the words blood pressure into a search bar today, you will get somewhere north of 40 million results, and nearly all of them say the same confident thing. Yes, ginger lowers blood pressure. Eat more of it. Take the capsules. Drink the shots. And for adults over 60, that answer is incomplete in a way that genuinely matters for your safety. In 2019, researchers pooled 6 randomized controlled trials, 345 participants in total, in a journal called Phytotherapy Research, and found that ginger lowered systolic blood pressure by an average of about 6 points. That number is real, and it is the number every wellness article quotes. But buried in the subgroup analysis of that same paper is one finding that almost nobody quotes, and if you are over 60, it changes the entire answer to the question in this title. I am going to read you that finding, plainly, in a few minutes, because it is the single most important thing in this video. I'm also going to tell you about a 71-year-old man who took ginger exactly the way the internet told him to, and ended up lightheaded on his garage floor with a home reading of 104/62. And I am going to name the specific heart medications, including 2 common blood thinners that ginger quietly interacts with, because in my experience, most people taking those medications have never been warned. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what ginger can do, what it cannot do, how much is reasonable for someone your age, and the 2-week test you can run at home to find out whether it does anything for your numbers at all. There is also one form of ginger sold in nearly every grocery store that I would not recommend to most people over 60 on certain medications, and I will tell you which one and why before we finish. Here is exactly what I am going to walk you through. First, the actual numbers from that 2019 meta-analysis, including the buried subgroup finding about age that changes the answer for anyone over 60. Second, how ginger actually works inside your artery wall, which happens to overlap with one of the most prescribed blood pressure drugs in America, and why that overlap can be a problem rather than a bonus. Third, the specific medications that matter here, including warfarin, apixaban, daily aspirin, and amlodipine, and what ginger may do when stacked on top of each of them. Fourth, the exact 2-week home cuff protocol, same time of day, same position, 2 readings a minute apart. That tells you whether ginger moves your numbers or whether you are simply hoping it does. And fifth, a free review that many people over 60 are already entitled to and almost never use, which catches dangerous supplement and medication combinations before they catch you. Before we go further, a quick word on who is talking to you. I am a physician, and my focus is cardiovascular health in adults over 60. A large part of my week is spent reviewing medication and supplement lists, hundreds of them a year, which means I see the same ginger questions and the same ginger mistakes repeat in the same patterns, season after season. One housekeeping note that matters. This video is education, not personal medical advice, and the patients I describe are composites with details changed. Your situation is your own, so please run anything here past your own doctor before you change a single thing. Let me tell you about a man I will call Frank. Frank is 71. He lives outside Dayton, Ohio, in the house he and his wife bought in 1989. Frank takes 20 milligrams of lisinopril every morning for his blood pressure, and a low-dose aspirin his previous doctor started years ago. At his checkup in March, his blood pressure was 142/88. Not a crisis, but higher than either of us wanted. And Frank said something I hear almost every week. He said, "Before you raise my medication, let me try something natural first." That same week, Frank read an article that told him ginger lowers blood pressure. So he drove to a supplement store and bought a bottle of ginger capsules, 1,000 milligrams each, and the label said take 3 per day, 3 grams. He also started drinking ginger tea with breakfast, 2 cups most mornings, and his wife bought a bag of crystallized ginger that sat open on the kitchen counter. Frank did not mention any of this to me, and he did not mention it to his pharmacist. Surveys published in journals like JAMA Internal Medicine have found that a majority of older adults use supplements, and fewer than half consistently tell their doctor. Frank was, in that respect, completely typical. For the first 2 weeks, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in week 3, Frank stood up from his workbench in the garage, felt the room tilt, and had to grab the shelving to keep from going down. 2 days later, he noticed a bruise on his left forearm the size of a playing card, and he could not remember hitting anything. When he finally checked his home cuff, the reading was 104/62. For a man whose body had been living at 140 for years, that is low enough to explain the garage. When Frank came in, we laid everything on the exam table and counted. 3 grams of ginger in capsules, roughly another gram in tea. The crystallized ginger he had been snacking on in the evenings. All of it stacked on top of lisinopril, which was already lowering his pressure, and aspirin, which was already thinning his blood slightly. The lightheadedness was the pressure stack. The bruise, very likely, was the ginger and aspirin working on the same part of his clotting system at the same time. Here is why I am opening with Frank. Frank did not do anything reckless. He did not ignore his doctor. He simply did not think a kitchen spice was worth mentioning. He did exactly what 40 million search results told him to do. And the pattern Frank fell into, stacking a concentrated supplement on top of prescription medication without telling anyone, is a pattern that millions of adults over 60 are repeating right now, this week, with this exact spice. So let's talk about what ginger actually does inside your body, because once you see the mechanism, everything about Frank's story makes sense. I want you to picture your circulation as a small-town water system. Your heart is the pump station. Your arteries are the water mains running under the streets, and blood pressure is simply the pressure inside those pipes. Now here is the detail most people never hear. The walls of your arteries are not rigid pipes. They are wrapped in a layer of smooth muscle, and that muscle acts like an adjustable valve running the entire length of every water main in town. When that muscle squeezes, the pipe narrows and pressure climbs. When it relaxes, the pipe widens and pressure falls. What tells that muscle to squeeze? Calcium. Calcium flows into the muscle cells through tiny gates called calcium channels, and when calcium flows in, the muscle contracts. This is exactly where one of the most prescribed blood pressure drugs in the country works. Amlodipine is a calcium channel blocker. It partially closes those gates, the muscle relaxes, the pipes widen, and pressure drops. Now here is the part about ginger. Pharmacology research going back to a 2005 paper by Gayoor and Gilani in the Journal of Cardiovascular Pharmacology found that the active compounds in ginger, gingerol, and shogaol appear to act on those same calcium channels. In plain English, ginger seems to behave like a very weak, very inconsistent, unregulated version of a calcium channel blocker. It also has a second effect. Ginger compounds may make platelets, the cells that form clots, slightly less sticky. Which is why ginger keeps showing up in the interaction warnings for blood thinners, and why Frank's bruise matters. And now the buried finding I promised you. That 2019 meta-analysis, the one behind nearly every headline saying ginger lowers blood pressure, did not just report an average 6-point drop. The researchers split the results by age and by dose. The reduction in blood pressure was statistically significant mainly in participants under the age of 50, and mainly at doses of 3 grams per day or more. Read that again. Under 50. The very trials that produced the headline were driven by people decades younger than the audience those headlines are sold to. For participants older than that, the evidence gets thin, and in the pooled data the effect was no longer clearly there. Why would age matter? Go back to the water system. In your 20s and 30s, your arterial pressure is heavily controlled by that muscle valve, the part ginger may gently relax. But over decades, the large water mains themselves change. The walls stiffen. Some calcium actually deposits in the pipe wall itself. After 60, for many people, systolic pressure is driven less by the muscle squeezing and more by the stiffness of the pipes themselves. And no amount of relaxing the valve softens a pipe that is hardened. That is likely part of why a mild muscle relaxer like ginger shows up clearly in younger trial participants and fades in older ones. So what happened to Frank? Frank's pressure did drop, and here is the honest reading of it. It was probably not ginger performing beautifully on its own. It was a weak, unpredictable calcium channel effect stacked on top of a full dose of lisinopril in a summer month in a man who does not drink enough water. The stack, not the spice. And to be fair to ginger, thin evidence in people over 60 is not proof it does nothing for you personally. It means nobody has properly proven it does. Those are different statements, and the 2-week test later in this video is how you deal with that difference honestly. Now let me show you 3 more people, because Frank is only one version of this story, and I want you to find the version that looks like you. Dolores is 64. She lives in Tucson. She is pre-diabetic, and at her physical, her blood pressure was 134/82. No medications yet. Under the current American Heart Association definitions, that is stage 1 hypertension, and her doctor gave her 6 months of lifestyle changes before considering a prescription. Dolores did 3 things. She started walking 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. She cut her sodium roughly in half by cooking at home. And yes, she added fresh ginger to her cooking, about a 1-inch piece grated into meals, somewhere around 1.5 grams a day, in food, not capsules. 12 weeks later, her average home reading was 126/78. Now, can she credit the ginger? Honestly, no one can say. The walking and the sodium carry far stronger evidence at her age. But this is the version of ginger use I have no quarrel with. Food amounts, no interacting medications, layered on top of proven habits rather than instead of them. If ginger contributed a point or 2, wonderful. If it contributed nothing but flavor, she lost nothing. Raymond is 73. He lives in Grand Rapids and he has atrial fibrillation, an irregular heart rhythm, for which he takes warfarin to prevent stroke. Warfarin is a blood thinner with a narrow, safe range, tracked with a blood test called the INR. Raymond's target range was 2 to 3. In January, the grocery store near Raymond started selling 2-ounce ginger shots at the smoothie counter, concentrated pressed ginger, and Raymond started drinking one every morning because he had heard it was good for blood pressure and inflammation. About 5 weeks in, Raymond got a nosebleed that would not stop. 25 minutes of pressure, 2 towels, and finally a trip to the emergency room. His INR came back at 4.1, well above his safe range. Nobody can prove the ginger did that by itself, and case reports in the pharmacy literature have documented exactly this combination, ginger plus warfarin, pushing the INR up. Remember, ginger has that second effect on platelets. Warfarin thins the blood one way, ginger nudges it another way, and Raymond was taking a concentrated daily dose of both, without a single person on his care team knowing. If you take warfarin, apixaban, rivaroxaban, clopidogrel, or even daily aspirin, Raymond is the story I need you to remember. And then there is Eileen, the case that surprises people most. Eileen is 68, lives in Charlotte, and had been well controlled on Amlodipine for 4 years, running around 124/76. Last spring she read an article, a fairly accurate one actually, explaining that ginger works on calcium channels just like her medication, and Eileen drew the logical-sounding, dangerous conclusion. If ginger does the same thing, why take the drug? She stopped her amlodipine on her own and replaced it with ginger capsules. 4 weeks later, she was back at 158/94 with morning headaches, and she was lucky the story ended at a bad reading, and not a stroke. Here is the principle, and I will say it as plainly as I can. A weak, natural version of a drug is not a substitute for the drug. Amlodipine is dosed, purified, and consistent. Ginger capsules vary from bottle to bottle and bite to bite. Eileen's story shows the real reach of this topic. The danger is not only interactions. It is substitution thinking, and I meet a version of Eileen every single month. So what should you actually do? Here is my list, in order, starting with the step that protects you from the worst outcomes. Number 1, before you add ginger in any concentrated form, run your complete medication list past your doctor or your pharmacist, and use the word ginger specifically. The medications that matter most here are the blood thinners, warfarin, apixaban, rivaroxaban, clopidogrel, and daily aspirin, and the blood pressure medications themselves, especially amlodipine, but also lisinopril, losartan, and hydrochlorothiazide, because ginger's effect may stack on top of theirs, the way it did for Frank. If you take a blood thinner, high-dose ginger is generally not a good idea for most people, and that decision belongs with your prescriber, not with a supplement label. This is a 5-minute conversation, and it is the single highest value step in this entire video. Number 2, if you are cleared to use ginger, keep it at food amounts. That means roughly 1 to 2 grams of fresh ginger a day, which is about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch piece, or a heaping teaspoon grated into a stir-fry, a soup, or steeped as tea. Notice that the 3 grams per day used in those trials was studied mostly in younger participants, and remember that ginger sources add up. Capsules plus tea plus ginger shots plus crystallized ginger is how Frank quietly reached a clinical trial dose without realizing it. Count the total. And here is the form I told you I would name. For most people over 60 on blood thinners or blood pressure medication, I would skip concentrated ginger shots and high-dose capsule stacks entirely. A 2-ounce shot can concentrate the ginger of many servings into one swallow, with no dosing consistency from batch to batch. Food form, in food amounts, is the lane. Number 3, run the 2-week home test instead of guessing. Get a validated upper arm cuff, not a wrist model. Every morning at the same time, before coffee and before pills unless your doctor says otherwise, sit quietly for 5 minutes, back supported, feet flat on the floor, arm resting at heart level. Take 2 readings 1 minute apart and log the average. Do 1 full week of baseline with no ginger. Then add your food form ginger and log 2 more weeks the same way. Bring that log to your next appointment. If your average moved, you and your doctor will see it in real numbers. If it did not move, you have your answer for your body, which is worth more than any headline. One firm rule with this: never adjust or stop a prescribed medication based on your own log. That decision is made with your doctor every time. Number 4, put ginger in its correct place in line, which is behind the levers that actually carry strong evidence for people our patient's age. The DASH eating plan, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, has lowered systolic pressure by up to 11 points in clinical trials. Cutting sodium toward 1,500 milligrams a day, per the American Heart Association, can take off several more. Regular walking helps. Isometric exercises, things like wall sits and hand grip holds, have shown reductions in the range of 8 points in pooled trial data, which is striking for something free. Sleep, alcohol moderation, and taking your prescriptions consistently round out the list. In water system terms, those levers maintain the pump and the pipes themselves. Ginger, at best, gently adjusts one small valve. Season your food with it happily. Just never let a garnish take the place of the main repairs. Number 5. Learn the quiet warning signs and act on them early. Lightheadedness when you stand up, especially in the first few seconds, can mean your pressure is dipping too low. Exactly Frank's garage moment. Unusual bruising, bleeding gums, or a nosebleed that will not stop are bleeding signals, Raymond's signals, and they warrant a call the same day. Heartburn is ginger's most common ordinary side effect, and larger amounts can aggravate reflux, which many people over 60 already manage. And if you have diabetes on medication, watch your glucose log, because some trials suggest ginger may modestly lower blood sugar too, which can stack with your diabetes medication the same way it stacks with pressure pills. When in doubt, stop the ginger and call your doctor's office. That phone call is never an overreaction. Now, one more move, and this is the one almost nobody in my exam rooms has heard of. If you take multiple medications and any supplements at all, you can get what pharmacists call a brown bag review. You literally put every bottle you take, prescriptions, vitamins, supplements, the ginger capsules, all of it, into a bag and sit down with a pharmacist who checks the entire list for interactions. Here is the part people miss. If you are on Medicare Part D and take several chronic medications, many plans include a comprehensive medication review once a year at no additional cost, a scheduled one-on-one with a pharmacist, and most people who qualify never use it. Even without that benefit, most community pharmacists will happily look over a supplement question at the counter. This is the safety net that would have caught Frank's 3-gram stack in week 1 and flagged Raymond's ginger shots before the nosebleed. One honest caveat. If you take one medication and no supplements, you do not need a formal review. A quick question at pickup will do. But if your kitchen counter has more than 3 bottles on it, prescription or otherwise, make the call this week and ask whether a medication review is covered for you. So let's answer the question in the title, honestly and completely. Does ginger really lower blood pressure? In pooled clinical trials, yes, modestly, around 6 points of systolic pressure on average. But that effect was clearest in people under 50 taking 3 grams or more a day, and for adults over 60, the evidence is thin, the interactions are real, and the dose that produced the headlines is a dose I would not casually recommend to someone on blood thinners or blood pressure medication. For most people over 60, ginger in food amounts is safe, pleasant, and possibly mildly helpful. Ginger in concentrated form, stacked silently on top of prescriptions, is how a spice becomes a problem. The 6 most valuable minutes you can spend on this topic are not spent swallowing capsules. They are spent telling your doctor or pharmacist every supplement you take and running that 2-week cuff test so your decisions rest on your own numbers instead of someone else's headline. And once more, because it matters, this video is education, not a prescription, and the people I described are composites. Your medications, your kidneys, your history, they change the answer. And only your own doctor sees the whole picture. If this cleared things up for you, tap the like button so it reaches one more person who is standing in a grocery store right now, holding a ginger shot and a warfarin prescription. And if you have a spouse, a friend, or a neighbor over 60 who takes a blood thinner and loves their ginger tea, send them this video today, before their next refill, not after. Subscribe if you want more plain answers like this one, because in the next video we are settling a question I get every single week. Which of your 2 blood pressure numbers actually matters more after 60, the top or the bottom? And the answer is, probably not the one you were taught. Take care of that heart of yours, and I will see you in the next one.